What's happening, everybody? So this video is building upon a few other videos that I've done way back in the past and kind of fantailing on a live show that I recently did, basically talking about the 5.7 liter Hemi and my thoughts on the 5.7 liter Hemi as it would pertain to being a muscle car. The weird thing about the 5.7, it's the much maligned baby brother, but it's not just the baby brother to the 6.4, but it's also kind of the whipping boy for the 6.2 liter LSX whatever family and the Coyote. But is it really? Does it really deserve that? Let's kind of dive into this thing a little bit so I can give y'all a little bit of perspective about what that 5.7 really does perform like. Give you guys some contemporaries that you can compare it to. And when you start to look deeper into the numbers, is it the 5.7 that doesn't look as bad? Or do you look at some of these other cars in maybe a little bit dimmer light? So what are we talking about with these other cars? Well, let's start out by saying this. We're not talking about the 5.7 liter NAG 1 variants. We're really talking about the 2015 and up 5.7 liter when coupled with that 8-speed automatic. It's important. In 2015, when that combination was released, Mopar set out into the world a car that was going to run just with that lowly 5.7, low 13-second quarter mile times. And to put that into perspective, let me just tell you that the cars of its day, its immediate contemporaries, we're talking the Camaro, and in this case, really the 5th gen Camaro SS, and the Mustang GT. And those two cars, when you would compare the quarter mile times, the Camaro typically would come out on top, but that car was about a 1280 to 1290 car, albeit weighing about, 400, 500 pounds less than that Challenger and making roughly 30 more horsepower. The Mustang, on the other hand, about a 13.0 car, and again, this is with the then available 6-speed automatic. Same goes for the Camaro. The point of this is that you had cars of its era when that car was being developed that were really 13.0 cars, give or take. I mean, yeah, you could get them a little bit quicker, race prep them, put them on a tire, whatever. But the reality is that, and I'll use air quotes here, lowly 5.7, well, it was right on the back bumper. No, it wasn't setting the pace. But when you're racing on a quarter mile, let me illustrate for you the difference between immediate finish line and 2/10. Watch my eyes. It's that fast. It's literally the blink of an eye. And so if you look at it from 13.0 versus 13.2 or 13.3 for that 5.7, it's that quick at the tail end of the track. Yes, it's not as quick, but it's not like the other cars are so far ahead where you can't read their license plate. Now, I get it, on the street, it might be a little bit different story from a roll, and that's a completely different conversation. The reality is, though, for what most folks are doing that's even somewhat sketchy legal, that 5.7 liter wasn't that far behind the quickest offerings, or at least quickest naturally aspirated offerings, from Ford and Chevrolet. And the 5.7 liter wasn't the top performing engine for that class. The somewhat new 6.4 liter Hemi would have been the one that would have been directly compared. And in that case, provided that that car could hook, which was a not guarantee at all, to say the least, the 6.4 liter was characteristically quicker than the rest of the field in general. So strange that the 5.7 liter is just barely trying to hang with the top performing naturally aspirated variants of the time. Again, we're looking at 2015, 2016 now, versus what in essence is the modern versions of those cars, which would be obviously the 6th gen Camaro, much quicker than the 5th gen, and the latest S550 iterations now coming into the S650 of the Mustang GT. So by today's standards, no, it's not quite as quick. But you have to remember that you're now talking about a completely different engine family. The LT variant was not a target for the 5.7 liter, really, nor for the 6.4. And then the latest variant of the Coyote, again, steps it up even further for that engine platform. The Mopars suffer from lack of development. It's like, what is it like? Dodge did quit true development, at least in terms of hardware, for the Hemi engine architecture. That stopped in 2015 in essence. And so for the NA stuff, kind of for the supercharged stuff in a way, but you kind of get where I'm going with this. Bottom line is that for its era, and weird that we're talking about era and it hadn't even been, not even 10 years yet, but for its release time with that 8-speed automatic, and keep in mind, yes, we understand the 8-speed was the big difference maker here, but it would all but hold its own against the quickest contemporary naturally aspirated versions of the Camaro and the Mustang. And I'm not talking about the 7-liter, $75,000 Z28. Just forget about that one in this conversation. For the more commonly available, how about that? It would just fine hold its own, especially on the street, and where it counted most was that the car was just simply bigger. Fantastic to look at. Boulevard cruiser, had all of the sounds, all of the tire smoke you could hope for, and a more comfortable package to boot. Little wonder why not long after its release, Challenger started devouring Camaro sales. I guess it's really not all about that final number. One other cool kind of topic that came up in one of the comments in one of the live shows was, well, what if Chevrolet introduced the Camaro with the 5.3 liter? The Ford really doesn't have a V8 offering, an engine that you could have talked about that would have been a downgrade for the Coyote. But interesting that, well, what if they ever did, instead of the 6.2 liter, and remember that it was a 6.2 liter that little 5.7 was running against, had a 5.3 to run up against. It would have been a very similar comparison to the 5.7 and the 6.4 proposition and a 5.3 versus the 6.2. But I think it's pretty interesting that with that 8-speed transmission, even though the 5.7 was so much heavier, it really didn't suffer too much in terms of performance, certainly not in the whole reality of living with the thing in the real world. It just was not that far off from its contemporaries of the time. And again, I get it, it wasn't that long until the 6th gen Camaro and all that other stuff. The point of this is to say that if you've got a 5.7 liter Challenger or Charger, trucks also fall into this category, you're not coming into the conflict unarmed. These cars and trucks run incredibly well, very punchy. The driving experience is that of an old school, muscly, torquey type of a car. And you get all of that at a bargain price by comparison, really when you start to dissect the then 2015 Camaro SS pricing and the Mustang pricing of the day. So get out there and have fun with your 5.7, hot rod them, have fun with them, but know for a fact that you are absolutely not looked down on. That 5.7's got a ton of upside. It does really well with modifications. For the guys that want to tinker with the car, you see upside with that thing. It's the corporate V8, so it was kind of detuned anyway. They knew people were going to be driving around with 87 octane. There are things with a tune you can do to that car to really wake them up. Again, tune, exhaust, Hellcat air box with the Hellcat air filter or K&N air filter is all you really need to make that car really fun. Put in a 309 limited slip diff. If you've got a 262 open or a 309 open, it'll help the car hook. you get the idea. There are places you can take that car that are significantly higher than what they come from stock. So the modification part of it's there, but the main thing that you get is a big, cool bruiser of a cruiser that can light the tires up at will, do burnouts for distance, has all the sound and the fury you could ever want, and it's all also usable power. Remember, this is a low 13-second car. And I mean every single one of them, save for a handful of the golden era of muscle cars, would be doing fantastic to try to get to the numbers that 5.7 runs. On the street, at least, for sure on the track as well. Most of those cars, big block cars, even were doing great to run a 1350 or 1380 on slicks at the drag strip. That gives you an idea of how strong that 5.7 is, even when you compare it to the legends from back in the day. Also shows you how far we've come. So get out there, again, know that you've got a cool car. I want to give love to the 5.7 because the 5.7 is the engine that got me back into Mopar with the trucks. I love the 5.7 Challengers and Chargers. They were always some of the most fun cars that I ever drove when I was working in a shop. I can tell you that all of that power is usable, and I can tell you that it is never boring driving one of those cars around when it's properly set up. Again, a tune, exhaust, airbox, a filter, a gear maybe is all you need to really wake those cars up, have something that is a blast, big and comfortable. And you know what? Let the other two guys squabble about while they're trying to go 100 and something miles an hour down the freeway. You'll give them hell to about 100, let them have their fun, call it good. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. 5.7 guys, love you to death. We'll catch y'all on the next one. That's a wrap. Adios.